Before we begin, you probably noticed that the scenery is a little bit different. So let me explain. I have opened up a new place. This is called the Hangout. I would like to call it a lounge area that is completely open to the public and where you can test out my very extensive collection of headphones and/or earphones. Calm down, have a coffee because we do have a barista, and just hang out. The address, the details, everything you need is all down in the description below. But that is not what you're here for. What you are here for is the IEM ranking list and the fact that I have massacred some of your favorite IEMs in its latest update. So let's talk about that. So if you are someone who have been living under a rock and have no idea what I'm talking about, let me again try to explain everything. The IEM ranking list is very self-explanatory. It's as the name implies. It's a ranking list of all of the IEMs or earphones that I have tested, measured, tried, auditioned, and then ranked according to performance. I started the IEM ranking list all the way back in the ancient year of 2017. And the reason why I started it was rather asinine. What most people don't know is that I actually started out my measurements database first back in 2016. But back then, when I did start out my database, a lot of people saw that I had tested and measured a lot of these IEMs, and then I got a deluge of questions asking me, Corinne, how does this IEM fare against that IEM? How does that IEM fare against this IEM? And trust me, my DMs were absolutely broken by the end of 1 year. So as a solution, I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna make what I call a one-stop solution. I decided to make a ranking list because at that point, people would stop asking me the question about what do I think about that versus this or this versus that, because all you had to do was just go into the ranking list and there you go. Just search for the answers yourself. Then of course, one thing led to another. The ranking list continues to evolve. I then decided to add on more parameters, the tech grade versus the tone grade. I decided to do a normal distribution at some point, and now we're here. 6 years later. So the topic of this conversation would be the latest update that I had released, I would say at this point, maybe a week ago. And I know at this point, a lot of you are a little bit illiterate. You guys don't want to read. And therefore, even though I had posted it on my website, you would still wait for something like this video before you actually paid any attention to it. So here's the video. But before that, there are a lot of things that I need to address before I go deep into the details and the weeds of all of these things. For example, the disclaimers, which since the start of the ranking list has always been, at the start of the ranking list. And yet, despite that fact, I know a lot of people simply just gloss it over because no one likes to read that wall of text every single time. And I know it's completely understandable. Some of you, again, don't like to read. But now I have to implore of you, to beg of you, that before you want to leave a comment down below or on my website, that please just read the entire disclaimer section, everything that I have to say, or hell, just watch this very video where I spend 12 minutes talking about every single thing that I think would affect the objectivity of my reviews. Watch that video, read my disclaimers, and then, only then, would you then comment on my comment section. Please, just please. In fact, I'm just gonna put my foot down and just say that if you leave a comment that implies that you didn't read or watch that video, I'm just gonna ban you. Straight and simple. Okay, so the boring stuff out of the way. Let's talk about the changes, which are honestly too many to count. I literally just overhauled the entire ranking list. First of all, the tone and technical grades now follow a bell curve and normal distribution, or at least as much as I would like it to try, because at some point, because of a little bit of selection bias on my part, I can't really put a lot of things into like D, E, F tiers because, I don't actively seek out the true garbage that's out there. That's it. On previous updates, I didn't really care about the distribution of the tone and tech grades. Now I do, and therefore I feel like the entire ranking list makes more statistical sense, if you will. The second change, which is a lot less sexy, would be that the note weight column is finally removed after 3 years of not actually updating it. So yeah, finally, thank you. The third change is that I have increased the requirements for the first value star. Previously, you just had to get at least a C+ grade. Now, it's a B-. The fourth one is just simply removing any reference to target curves, for example, Harman or diffuse field in the signature column of the ranking list. I feel like I'm not being very consistent on that front. I don't know how close the tuning should be to a specific target before you can regard it as being tuned to that target. So just to remove all headache on my part, I'm just going to remove it completely. And that's pretty much the extent of the big changes that are happening on this ranking list. And I know that a lot of you would have the first instinct to look at the ranking list from a rank down perspective. That is from, say, S all the way down to F. But I feel like the rankings are actually a lot more useful if you sort them by the value stars instead, because the value stars, of course, propose that certain things are worth buying or break the price bracket, or even just simply just buy it because it's that good. The letter grades themselves don't really give you that much information because, you know, again, everything is all about price to performance value. If something is A grade, for example, but it costs $8,000, I'm not gonna say that's worth the price, because at that point you would have something that's like $500 in the A grades as well, and you know, at that point, why go for the $8,000 one? So yes, the ranking list is by default sorted according to rank, but for the layman, I feel like it's a lot more useful if you sort it by value stars instead, because that tells you a lot more about the value proposition that that IEM would give you. That said, I know a lot of you don't like to read, so in a future video, I would be doing a complete breakdown of all of the IEMs that I have awarded at least a single star. So look forward to that video, because it's essentially just the best IEMs at every price point video part 2. So that's really more or less the more interesting things out of the way. Let me go deep into the much more nerdier shit that I know a lot of people will start clicking away for. So as I have talked about in my Don't Trust the Ratings video, I personally have a lot of problems with a lot of other rating systems that other review sites like to use. And it's mainly because everyone seems to like to rank things a lot higher and just simply populate the higher ratings or ranks with a lot of different models. So a very simple example would be like the IGN problem, where something very average would be rated at 8 out of 10, and something that would be considered terrible would be then rated at 7 out of 10. And basically everything just exists above 7 out of 10 and just completely screws over the concept of something that's average in the first place. So I don't like that. I personally don't like that. And I follow the philosophy of be the change that you want to be in the world. And so for my own ranking system, I decided to go for a normal distribution. That is to say, the average should be the most populated population, if that makes sense. And of course, as you can see, C is the most populated grade, because C just represents average. It's normal. It's like mid. I don't care about it. Then in all logical fashion, as you go closer and closer into the higher grades, that is where you get less and less things populating the higher grades. For example, in the current highest grade of S-, there are only 3 models. That's it. 0.28% of the entire IEM ranking list population, 0.28%. And that's how I feel like things should be ranked, where a very tiny population of things get awarded the highest grades, because if everything is good, nothing is. I've plotted everything out on the article on my website. Everything has now a normal-ish distribution, from the general ranks themselves to the tone grades and to the technical grades. And if you manage to plot it all out in a price to rank scatter plot, you realize that there is not a lot of correlation between price and performance. And honestly, that's kind of the point. Yes, I might have some bias towards price, but I'm only human, right? I know that at some point, seeing big numbers on a price tag is gonna make me think, wow, this might be a great IEM. I try my best not to think too much about the final price tag, but at some point, the bias is still gonna creep in. I'm only human. But in general, if you look at the scatter plot again, I'm actually fairly proud of how it turned out. There is not a lot of correlation. There's a little bit of correlation, but in general, when you look at it like that, it's like, yeah, it's kind of random, because, you know, you can make great IEMs at a cheap price, at least nowadays. And to go even deeper into the nerd shit, and I think probably at this point I've scared off most of my viewers, let's talk about the algorithm. At this point, I'm just really putting everything out there so no one really questions the black box that apparently is my rankings. Hi, Crinacle here. Just fair warning, I'm about to just unleash a bunch of word vomit at you, and I'm just gonna try and just edit out as cohesively as possible. But if you're gonna skip all of that, just go to this timestamp. I am so sorry, I just want this video done and over with. So let's start with how the algorithm works. First of all, we have the top ranks, which would have a value of, let's say, 1, that's S+. And then as you go down to S, it'll be 1 plus 2, so it'll be 3. Then as you go down and down and down, you increase the levels of increment, which goes by n equals n times n plus 1, something like that. So it'll be 1, 3, 7, 14, it just keeps increasing all the way down. Diminishing returns, what are you going to do about it? Then of course we have to go and account for the fact that when you hit and therefore, yes, the overall score is S+. And therefore it can't get recognized as an S+. Honestly, I feel like at this point I should be just writing all of this down, but I don't, and I am short-circuiting at this point. And then of course we go into the value rating system, which at some point was completely arbitrary. I just looked at the list and just hoped to God that I did the right calculations. But now I actually have an algorithm which is based on the rank score divided by the price multiplied by 100,000, I think, and then just sorted descendingly, and then I do stuff. Let's put it, I do stuff. Let's now just get into the crux of the issue, because I know that some of you, a lot of you, might have some issues with the way that I have ranked some entries on the list. And here is where I really have to point back to my disclaimers, where I talk about how the hobby is subjective, everyone has their own personal opinions on things. The ranking list itself is, as much as I try to be objective, the fact that it's subjective means that I'm not going to please everyone. I don't claim to speak for the tastes of everyone in this world, and neither should anyone else. So if you see someone out there who's claiming that their ranking list or their opinions are somehow better than mine, then remind them again that this is a subjective hobby. I don't claim to be the ultimate authority to tell people what to think, and therefore they shouldn't either. That's it. For those of you who have issues with certain entries on the list, I'm gonna throw out a challenge right now. Comment down below. Comment down below on the problems, the issues, the things that you disagree with me on the list. You wanted to throw out some insults? Sure, why not? But here is where we have kind of a give and take situation. When you comment down below, when you comment on my website, when you comment on the Reddit threads or whatever, I have essentially full reign to clown on you. Because if you are willing to disparage my opinions, then I too have the right to tell you that your opinion is shit. So for those of you who do want a challenge, I don't mind, because this is great content for me. You want to say, oh, Crin, you shouldn't have dropped down the UWP-D down to A tier because the blah 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 is at the same tier. And then at that point, I don't mind having that discussion with you, but at the same time, do note that this is a YouTube video and I will absolutely insult you for it. So there will be 2 more contents in the pipeline, the first of which would be when after all of you dropped your hot/spicy takes on the comments down below and I responding to it in kind. And the second bit of content, which would be more relevant for more of you guys, is talking about all of the IEMs that I feel have the greatest price to performance value at every price point. So look out for that, because you know that those are good contents that are coming up soon. If you can already tell, due to the contents of this video, I wouldn't want my usual sponsors on here. So in lieu of that, let me just continue to shill the Hangout. When you go to my ranking list and you see the status column, you would see that some units would be available for demo at the Hangout. And they absolutely are. As I've said, the Hangout is a public lounge that you can come down, try out any of the headphones, IEMs, and earphones that I get for review. I'm not selling them. Full disclosure, I am not selling them. I am, however, selling my collabs, but that's a separate topic altogether. So again, you can just come on down, try out any of the things that I have for review, for loan, whatever, grab a cup of coffee, and listen to your heart's content. We're located in Chinatown, 29B, Mosque Street, level 3. I repeat again, level 3, not level 2, level 3, alright? And now, as per usual, let me just shout out my big money boys. Here are all of your names who have subscribed to the $20 tier on my Patreon. And for those who have subscribed to my $30 tier, allow me to speak out your beautiful names. Dennis McMadface, Crinacle, Alicia Burrito, Andrew, Frit, Pit Vanderwit, Posichronic, Like Pizza, Drazar, 404 user not found, Seraphim, Miam, and Lunar Mint. I thank you all. I know I've been a little bit out of it in terms of video content, but that's only because I've been trying to set up, again, the Hangout. Okay, I swear, I'm not gonna show that anymore. The Hangout. Let's hope that this would mean that content will be back at a weekly schedule. And on that note, see you next week. Don't die. Fuck off.